It is quite clear that right now 5th edition is in a state that a lot of third-party creators are trying to add something new to the game that we've been playing for a while now. And I often think it's not always for the better. As a matter of fact, I really love the simplicity of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. But right now there is a campaign that is just about to be funded and is just nearing its final 48 hours that adds something new to dungeon crawling that I find very intriguing. So let's look at Rultmoork. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters. Now I know what you're thinking, yet another Kickstarter. I do not know what is happening, but September seems to be like the month of the 5th edition Kickstarters. Everybody and their mom is launching a Kickstarter. As a matter of fact, next month I'm launching my own Kickstarter, link in the description below. But there's just a few, and there's a lot of them, but there's just a few that I really want to talk about because it is my job to point you towards very cool third-party content, and Rultmoork seems to be one of those things. Now, a great friend of mine, DM Toolbox, I will link in the description below, has already done a video of this with an interview with the creators. Very interesting video if you want a deeper dive into Rultmoork, and it's because I saw that video, his video on TikTok, his video on YouTube, that I really want to talk about this one. Rultmoork, D&D 5th edition adventure with morphing monsters and moving maps. It's that first thing that I find really interesting. This thing is introducing something that I find really cool, that I don't know if they're going to nail it eventually because it is a Kickstarter, but I think it's just really interesting. Now, to summarize, they're looking for 51,000 euros. You're probably thinking that's a really weird goal, but that's because it transfers from dollars to euros. So in dollars, it's $50,000, and they're now at 48,722 US dollars. So they are near being funded. So this is probably coming. They still have 52 hours to go, and I just want you to click the link in the description below and see for yourself if you like it or not. Make sure to check out the trailer on their Kickstarter page because it is full of information. So what we're doing in this video is what we're doing always, and it is just looking at the Kickstarter page, see what they promise, and then we'll download the free preview PDF and take a look at that and see if it's interesting and if it's cool enough for you to back. If it's for you, back it. If it's not for you, don't back it. Don't spend your money on stuff you don't want to spend your money on. So this is Rultmoork. Like always, first of all, why it intrigues me, it's not only like the morphing monsters, but it's also like undead. As you might know, I've written my own undead adventure with JVC Parry. I just like undead. I like adventures, dungeon crawls that have undead. So I'm gonna summarize the main plot of this thing. So the land is dry, like the adventurers investigate a solitary, I can also read it here, solitary spire of stone in a barren mountains wasteland. According to legend, water once sprung forth from this spire, blessing the land with life. Now the land is dry, the ancient site in ruins, and the wondrous water clock is stagnant. This stagnation infuses all beings, from the strange cultists on the surface to the former elemental guardians below the surface of the earth. That's something like that they say in the trailer. It's really cool voiceover, by the way. Kudos to the creators. So that's the main thing. So there is this stagnation, is that a word? And that's basically what they're doing with the monster. So I'm going to scroll down a bit to like what I think is interesting. So they have to, all the monsters, or like a bunch of the monsters in this adventure slash setting slash thing are going to have like two modes of play. And I find this really interesting. They're going to have a flow mode and a stagnation mode. As you can see right here, they are the same creature, but they're also different. So when the water flows from this well, they're probably, all the creatures in the surrounding area are going to be in their flow mode. That's how I'm seeing it. And then when the water doesn't flow, they're going to be in the stagnation, in their stagnation form or whatever, which is really cool. And there's more information on that on the Kickstarter page. If you want to go deeper into that, make sure to check the interview with DM Toolbox, and also like the Kickstarter page itself. Read it for yourself. This is like more of a summary type thing, and this is really cool. I like monsters. Like if the players, for example, know what monster they're going to come across, like I don't know. There could be like a rust monster, right? There's a rust monster, but they know, oh, a rust monster is dangerous because it can do this and this and this, and basically can fuck a fighter over. But they don't know if it's going to be in their flow or their stagnation mode. And there's going to be like this thing with these gems. They have these tokens that you can use in order to transform everything from stagnation to flow and from flow to stagnation. It's really weird, and I don't know exactly how they're going to translate it, but I find it really, really intriguing. Next to that, it's basically a dungeon crawl with like undead, and there's puzzles, and there's riddles, there's an ancient language, and it's really, yeah. So there's play styles, for all player types, such as role-playing, rune exploration, investigation, riddle and puzzle solving, extreme combat, and dungeon diving. They are, even in the trailer, they even talk about like a hardcore mode, which makes everything way more dangerous and deadly. So there's a new 5e mechanic, flow and stagnation mode, so characters can change magic items, monsters, and even the dungeon itself by using this Rultmoork exclusive mechanic. I find it really interesting. Hardcore mode, brutal and unique monsters, three nightmarish bosses challenge even the most experienced groups. So these are like the boss fights of boss fights, probably, and there's 3 of them. Logical environments reward players for paying attention and engaging with the wonders of Rultmoork. Yeah, player handouts, and that's where I want to go. So the backer stuff right here, I think this is always really interesting, right? A collector's box sets. And I think personally, whoa, sorry, moving my camera right. I think personally, it's really well priced. For like, it's not cheap in any way, but it's also like really well priced, right? So $29 for the PDF, digital PDF, and virtual tabletop. So for $1 you get the pledge $1 to get access to purchase Foundry V2T, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, and the rest of our immersive add-ons after you pledge one add-on, whatever. Anyway, $30, like $29 for the PDF, $44 for the hardcover and the PDF, because I see a lot of companies now, like on Kickstarter, doing doing PDF, hardcover, and then PDF plus hardcover. So backing the hardcover doesn't necessarily give you the PDF, which I found always like really weird and kind of a little bit of rip-off. But for this, they're doing it together. Limited edition hardcover. I personally am not a fan of limited edition stuff. I am not a collector in that way. Anyway, for me, the most interesting thing here is the $129, $130 Rultmoork box set, which gives you everything but the limited hardcover print. And this is really cool. They have 2 sets of dice, right? So they have the green set of dice, which are the full set of flow dice, and then they have the full set of stagnation dice, which are really cool. You can, as a dungeon master, even go into like that, oh, this monster is in stagnation mode, so I'm rolling the blue dice. It's in flow mode, so I'm rolling the green dice, right? And then there's the I always like these miniatures that aren't really miniatures, but you can pop them out and put them on your table. They're cheaper way. Cobra Press does a lot of that, which I think it's really, the value here is really, really, really good. Like $44 for a hardcover is a really good price if you think of it. Like, I see a lot of books going to like $50, $60 even, and Rultmoork just stays in the $44 area. Player handouts, all relevant locations, riddles, magic items, pawn sets, dice. There's these flow and stagnation tokens. What they exactly do, I still have to figure out. Collection of flow and stagnation tokens for hand your players, dice bags, collector's box, and then there's the limited edition, which I think is like, it's cool to have, but it's just not for me personally. I mean, spend your money on the stuff you want to spend your money on, right? So I'm really hoping they're sending me a standard edition box set to review. Wink, wink. please. And then there is also a soundtrack. Yes, try to play this. See if... Oh, there's another soundtrack. There is a soundtrack somewhere here. There's a soundtrack. I know it's somewhere here. I know you're here. I know you're here. I know you're... That was just a video from another YouTuber, if I'm not mistaken. I know the soundtrack is right somewhere here. I played it. Oh, here it is. Here's like a part of the soundtrack. Like, this is kind of like the... I don't know if you can hear this, but it's like the environmental stuff you can play while your players are like in a dungeon. They're dungeon crawling, and you just have like a Bluetooth speaker under your table or something like that. And you can just play this dark music that isn't really saying anything, but it's just like suggesting what is going on. I've always liked that as a dungeon master. I use that a lot. Like when my players are on the sea, I play like these more like exploration type soundtracks. I just use movie soundtracks mostly, or video game soundtracks, but like exploration soundtracks. And when they're in a dungeon, I'm going like more into this nitty and gritty type stuff. Or when I'm playing horror adventure, I like these organs playing in the background, which I think is really cool. And they're saying like something like a 10-hour or something background, a 10-hour or something soundtrack is really cool. I think a lot of creators are doing that right now, adding soundtracks to their books, which I think is a really cool extra, and also gives like people who create soundtracks a job, which is also very nice. And then there's this dynamic dungeons. There are these maps that you can load into your virtual tabletop that support this, and they have this night-day cycle. There's clouds going back and forth, and there's just like minor stuff that moves, so it doesn't really like take over your game or anything, or change your map entirely or anything. It's like with this, the torches go on suddenly, which gives like this really cool atmosphere, especially with like the ambient sound in the background. It's like, whoa. So yeah, Rultmoork, for me personally, I think is really interesting to at least click the link in the description below and take a look at for yourself. I will take a look at the PDF now so we can see, kind of get an idea of what we're actually going to get. And this is it, the free PDF you can download from the Kickstarter page, Rultmoork. Now this is 11 pages thick, and it will only just be a quick glance at the PDF because I want you to check it out for yourself if you are potentially interested in it. So we get a bunch of cool artwork, and what do we get from this PDF? We get like the introduction to what Rultmoork is. Rultmoork is basically a very old temple that everybody forgot about. And there used to be like 2 artifacts called tears that were used for a flow of water, like magical water going through the lands, and everything was like, there was a lot of green, and everything was going, there was like a lot of prosperity and everything, and then suddenly it stopped. And basically now you have 2 beliefs. You have like the people that are into the stagnation, which are presented in green text throughout the adventure, monsters and people and stuff that talks about stagnation is in green text. And stuff that talks about flow is in blue text. So there is this bad guy, so to speak, who there was this war outside of this temple. So the priests locked themselves in. I'm dumbing this down, by the way, so to the creators, please don't murder me, but I'm just kind of dumbing it down. So if you want to read it for yourself, like deeper, make sure to click to download the PDF for yourself. But they kind of locked themselves into this temple, and they stopped the flow of the water because there was a war outside. And then one of the priests went outside, and they saw this death and decay. And like one person kind of saw the flow part being like, because of stopping the river, they were now worshipping it not flowing, hence the stagnation, while others were still claiming the older belief, which it's really hard to explain if you were not reading it out loud or reading it it's really hard to, I get it, but I'm not able to convey this to you for some reason, so make sure to just read it for yourself, because that's basically what's going on, and it's really original, it's really well thought out of, and it's really good reason for players to go into an ancient dungeon, not only for the treasure, not only for the fame, not only for the worship, but just finding out if the priests in there are still alive or undead or something in between, or what is going on, all these secrets, riddles from ancient times. It's a really good reason to get people into the dungeon, and I like that. that. Oftentimes there's just a dungeon and there isn't really a reason to go in there, but the dungeon is there. And people are just like, yeah, let's walk into a dungeon that's potentially trapped and just will probably kill us or something like that, but just let's walk in there. But a dungeon needs a good reason, and this one has one. Just read it for yourself. It's really good. So something that's really cool to say as Rultmoork, really important, is a challenge and deadly adventure intended for veteran players. Only the truly skilled and fearless should dare venture into this place. Make sure to read the entirety of this module carefully before running it. Rultmoork challenges are complex and lethal, and I absolutely love this. There's a lot of hand-holding in D&D nowadays, which is good because there are a lot of new players that need that, because they're like, what? It is a weird game. We're pretending to be fighters and wizards and sorcerers, and now we're going to dungeon and defeating dragons. What are we doing? But there's also these players, including myself, who have been in the hobby for a while, like myself, more than 20 years, and we just like that really boots on the ground, death lurking around every corner challenge, while it's still being fair but really hard. And we really love that. And there aren't a lot of dungeons, there aren't a lot of adventures that do that. There are some adventures that are hard and deadly at some points, but there aren't any adventures I know of that really explain that in a word of warning. Are like, this is for the people that know how to play D&D. They know how to think. They know how to overcome challenges. And they know, basically they're not saying that, but if you read between the lines, they know how to get the fuck out of the dungeon if the shit hits the fan. Sorry for my language, but that's just basically what happens in D&D. Sometimes you need to know when to run. And that's like my main thing that I love about Rultmoork. It is for hardcore players that love that challenge, that are into that old school boots on the ground thing. And other than that, this is an introduction just to give you a feel of what it's going to be. As you can see, there's green text, there's blue text, there's great artwork, and there's just a way, like there's this riddle to get into the dungeon. We're going to go into that. There's this riddle, a prayer that people need to say, and it is in a language they don't know, but they can decipher the language using the runes and then the alphabet of the common language together, putting them together and like kind of figure out what the riddle is, and then kind of figure out the answer, and then opening the door to Rultmoork. And that's basically where this module, this 11 pages module stops, and then you just wait for the final book to come out and you can actually play Rultmoork. I personally am really looking forward to this old school, hard, challenging dungeon, spanning from level like tier 2 dungeon that I'm going to use against my players, because my players absolutely love it as well. So to the creators, please send me a copy, and until next video, bye bye.